Quick reminder before we get started, if you haven't subscribed or followed this podcast on your favorite podcast platform yet, I would really appreciate it if you click the follow button now or the subscribe button, as it will really help us a lot. In this recovery snippet, I speak with Natalie Rose Allen, better known as Wake Up and Smell the Rosé, in Instagram and social media. And Natalie is a registered psychotherapist specializing in supporting people with eating disorders. And in this episode, Natalie talks about the skill of using opposite action to deal with overwhelming emotions. Once they have a binge, we're just most vulnerable to having these voices in our head telling us oh, why did you do that? Or you should have done better. You didn't work hard enough. We're just most vulnerable to these very negative messages coming from our head. What can we do right after a binge to alleviate or get us through these very vulnerable messages?
Yeah, it's such a uncomfortable place to be in right after a binge. It's
Mm.
pretty awful because the shame is so overwhelming and you just kind of want to hide from the world. Um, One really helpful skill that we talk about in therapy is opposite action. So when you are engulfed in a big emotion like that, and it's having a negative impact on your life, like it's making you want to skip classes or skip social events or things that are meaningful and important, you want to do the complete opposite to get out of that emotion. So that would be the complete opposite of shame is self-compassion. It's showing up even when you want to hide. It's talking to yourself kindly, trying to understand yourself versus shaming and criticizing and putting yourself down. So, be curious about what led to this binge. Like, have I been extremely stressed? Did I accidentally, skip a meal or some snacks, earlier on in the week and my hunger is catching up to me? Was I feeling anxious at that party where I just felt like I couldn't handle that anxiety and binging was the only way I knew how to cope in that moment. So by being curious, you can then start to get answers and then work through the triggers rather than staying engulfed in shame. You're kind of just, you want to hide, you want to punish yourself with a strict diet, you want to pretend it didn't happen altogether. So you never really get to reflect on those triggers and what you might be really needing.
Hmm. Yeah. So what is it called again?
Opposite action.
Opposite action.
Yes.
Wow.
So you take the action that's opposite to what your current emotion is prompting you to do. So if you're feeling intense shame after a binge, you're probably having an urge to hide, criticize, isolate yourself. Those are the actions that your big emotion is compelling you to do, but you want to get out of that emotion. So you do the opposite action. So you speak kindly to yourself, you show up somewhere, you reveal, maybe talk about what you feel shameful of, like, releasing it can alleviate shame, have compassion, try to understand yourself, and try to also recognize that you're not alone
Hmm.
and find a way to actually make yourself feel better. So try to meet the need, try to soothe yourself versus shaming yourself and criticizing.
Wow. Opposite action. Do you think is it one of those things that is really difficult at first, and then the more you build onto it, the more um, you try to be more mindful of to implement opposite action? Do you think it's something that gets easier over time?
Definitely. Yeah, it's one of those things that feels so contradictory, because when you're in a big emotion, all you can feel and experience is that emotion, and that's all you eat. Your brain kind of wants to sit in that. So opposite emotion feels very unnatural. But once you start to experience the benefits of it, you start to really believe in using it as a tool. Another example of using opposite action is if you have binged or maybe before a binge, but you're having an urge to restrict. Like you're thinking, oh no, I shouldn't eat that, or
Mm.
I should skip dinner because I'm going to have, a big meal tomorrow, or, whatever the reason is, having an urge to restrict. You want to do the opposite of that. You want to eat something because restriction almost always leads to binge eating.
Hmm. So it applies to so many things, really. It's not just after a binge. It's like um, throughout the day when you're having difficult emotions.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful. I've never heard of it, but now I'm gonna like implement it.